Welcome to Mystery History for Sleep. I am Mr. H, your guide through the shadowed corridors of the past, where secrets lie buried beneath stone and time. Tonight, we embark on a journey to unravel one of history's most perplexing artifacts, the Piri Reis map, a parchment that should not exist, a chart that whispers of a world forgotten, a coastline drawn too early, too clearly, too impossibly. Close your eyes, let your breath slow, and allow the mystery to carry you into the quiet of the night. In the year 1513, a Turkish admiral named Piri Reis, a man of the sea with ink-stained hands, sat in his quarters, perhaps by candlelight, and drew a map. This was not an unusual act for a man of his station. The 16th century was an age of exploration, of sails unfurled against uncharted horizons, of maps scratched onto parchment with quills and hope. But Piri Reis's map was different. It was not a crude sketch of half-seen shores or a fanciful rendering of imagined lands. It was precise, deliberate, and impossibly right. Its lines traced coasts known to the world, but also one that no man of his time should have seen: the edge of Antarctica, a continent buried beneath ice, unseen by human eyes for millennia. Antarctica, as we know it today, is a frozen realm, a wasteland of glaciers and biting winds, locked in ice for thousands of years. Its discovery is recorded in history as 1820, when Russian explorers glimpsed its frosted silhouette through the mist. Yet Piri Reis's map, drawn 300 years earlier, does not show a frozen wasteland. It shows Antarctica's coastline free of ice, with rivers flowing, inlets carving deep into the land, and ridges rising where no sailor could have seen them from the sea. The curves are too crisp, the details too exact, as if the hand that drew them had walked those shores, had measured their angles, had known their secrets. But in 1513, no ship had ventured so far south. No explorer had braved the crushing cold of the Antarctic seas. So how did Piri Reis know? The map itself is a fragment, a single sheet of gazelle skin parchment, now yellowed and worn, preserved in the quiet halls of the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. It was found in 1929, not through grand excavation or deliberate search, but by accident, unrolled in a dusty corner by a scholar looking for something else entirely. The world was not ready for what it revealed. Within months, skeptics rose to dismiss it. They called the coastline a coincidence, a flourish of artistic imagination mistaken for land. They suggested Piri Reis had drawn South America's southern tip and stretched it too far. But cartographers, those who study the language of maps, looked closer. They saw something else. The contours were not vague guesses. They were measurements, precise and unyielding, matching the true shape of Antarctica's subglacial terrain, a landscape hidden beneath 2 kilometers of ice. Modern science, with its radar and satellites, has only recently peeled back the frozen veil to reveal what lies beneath. In the late 20th century, geologists used advanced imaging to map the land under Antarctica's glaciers. They found rivers still flowing in secret, valleys carved by ancient waters, ridges untouched by time. When these findings were laid beside Piri Reis's map, the impossible became undeniable. The map was not wrong. It was right too right. Its lines traced the exact curves of a coastline no one could have seen in 1513, a coastline that matched the land as it was over 6,000 years ago, when Antarctica was last free of ice. Let that sink in for a moment. 6,000 years ago, before the pyramids rose, before the first cities of Mesopotamia, before the invention of the wheel, someone, somewhere, knew the shape of Antarctica. They knew its rivers, its inlets, its mountains. They charted it with a precision that rivals our own. And somehow, that knowledge survived, passed through centuries, through hands unknown, to land in the quill of a Turkish admiral who claimed he was merely copying from older sources. Who were these mapmakers? Where did they stand to see what they saw? And why does their work feel like a whisper from a time we are not supposed to remember? Piri Reis himself left clues, though they raise more questions than answers. In the margins of his map, written in his own hand, he noted that he drew from 20 charts and mappe mundi, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. He never claimed to have sailed to Antarctica himself, never boasted of discovering its shores. He was a compiler, a scribe of the sea, gathering fragments of knowledge from scrolls and charts now lost to history. But what were these sources? Were they parchments from ancient libraries, burned in the fires of Alexandria, or scattered in the winds of conquest? Were they tales carried by sailors, whispered in ports from Constantinople to Cathay? Or were they something else entirely, records of a civilization that walked the earth before the floods, before the ice, before the stories we tell ourselves about who we are? The implications are vast. Like the continent itself, if Antarctica was ice-free 6,000 years ago, as geologists now confirm, then the people who mapped it lived in a world we barely understand. They had no compasses, no telescopes, no ships capable of crossing the roaring Forties to reach the southern pole. Yet their map suggests they did more than see the land. They measured it, understood it, perhaps even walked its shores. This raises a chilling possibility, a civilization with technology or knowledge far beyond what we attribute to the ancients. A civilization that could navigate the globe, chart its edges, and leave behind a legacy so precise it survived millennia of silence. But why was this knowledge hidden? The map's discovery in 1929 was not heralded with fanfare. It was tucked away in the Topkapi Palace, sealed among dusty scrolls, neither catalogued nor displayed. It emerged by chance, a near miss with oblivion. When it did surface, the world's reaction was telling. Skeptics dismissed it, but military analysts and cartographers took notice. In the 1960s, Professor Charles Hapgood, a scholar of ancient maps, studied the Peary Race map and found its projection so accurate that the United States Air Force acknowledged its precision in private correspondence. Publicly, they said nothing. Why the silence? Why the reluctance to embrace a discovery that could rewrite history? One hypothesis is that the map was not meant to be found, not because it was false, but because it was true. Its existence challenges the timeline we have constructed, the neat progression from primitive tribes to modern empires. It suggests a fracture in our understanding, a gap where something older, wiser, and perhaps more powerful once stood. Some whisper that the map survived not by accident but by design, protected by those who knew its weight. The Topkapi Palace, where it lay hidden, was no ordinary archive. It was a fortress of secrets, a place where knowledge was guarded as fiercely as gold. Was the map kept there to be preserved, or to be forgotten? Let us consider the science for a moment. Geologists tell us that Antarctica's last ice-free period ended around 6,000 years ago, during a time when sea levels rose and climates shifted. This was the era of the Younger Dryas, a sudden cooling event that reshaped the Earth's surface and, some argue, erased entire civilizations. If the map's source dates to this time, it implies a people capable of surviving cataclysm, of preserving their knowledge through flood and fire, of passing it down through generations until it reached Peary Reis. The precision of the map's projection, its alignment with modern surveys, suggests a mastery of cartography that defies explanation. Even today, mapping a continent requires satellites, computers, and teams of experts. How did an ancient people achieve this with nothing but their eyes and their minds? Theories abound, each more tantalizing than the last. Some propose that the map is evidence of a lost civilization, Atlantis perhaps, or another culture whose name we have forgotten. Others suggest contact with an advanced society, perhaps from across the seas or beyond the stars. The idea is not as far-fetched as it seems. The map's accuracy requires knowledge of spherical geometry, a concept not formalized in Europe until centuries later. It demands an understanding of longitude and latitude, tools that were not widespread until the age of sail. Could Peary Reis's sources have come from a culture that sailed the world when our ancestors were still carving stone? There is another layer to the mystery, one that chills the blood. The map does not stand alone. Other charts from the 16th century, like the Orontius Phineas map, also show Antarctica's coastline with uncanny detail. These maps, too, were dismissed as anomalies, yet they share the same precision, the same impossible knowledge. Were they all drawn from the same lost source? And if so, why was that source lost? Some scholars point to the destruction of ancient libraries, like the one in Alexandria, where countless scrolls were burned. Others suggest a deliberate effort to erase this knowledge, to bury it beneath dogma or power. The Catholic Church, the Ottoman Empire, the scholars of the Renaissance, all had reasons to control what the world knew. A map that showed a world before the ice could challenge their authority, their narratives, their gods. Yet the map persists, a silent witness to a truth we cannot fully grasp. Its parchment, fragile and faded, holds lines that refuse to fade. Each curve, each inlet, is a question mark etched in ink, asking us to look beyond the stories we have been told. What if history is not a straight line, but a spiral, folding back on itself? What if the past we know is only a shadow of what was? The Piri Reis map is not just a chart of land. It is a map of doubt, a fracture in the certainty we cling to. It suggests that someone, long ago, saw the world as we see it now, and left behind a message we are only beginning to read. As you listen, let your mind drift to that distant shore, where rivers once flowed under a warmer sky. Were they like us, driven by curiosity, by the need to know? Or were they guardians of a truth too vast, too dangerous to be shared? The map does not answer. It only waits, as it has for centuries, in the quiet of the Topkapi Palace, in the silence of the ice. Let that silence carry you now into the soft edges of sleep, where mysteries linger and the past whispers its secrets. Deep beneath the Apostolic Palace in Rome, where marble corridors echo with the footsteps of centuries, a secret lies sealed. Not in a vault of gold or a crypt of bones, but in a chamber no one was meant to find, a place known only by a name whispered in forgotten records, Quadrans Obscurus, the Dark Quadrant. In 1998, a minor earthquake shook the Vatican's foundations, splitting the masonry of a lower archive. Engineers, sent to assess the damage, lowered a camera through a narrow fissure and glimpsed something extraordinary. A room, untouched by time, its floor inlaid with polished slate, arranged in concentric rings that gleamed like the surface of a still pond. This was no ordinary chamber. It was a map, not of land or sea, but of the heavens themselves, carved in stone and hidden from the world. The rings were not random. They formed a geometric pattern, a quadrant magnified to the scale of a room, each groove etched with precision that defied the tools of any known era. At the center lay a circular depression, smooth and free of dust, as if something had rested there and been removed. The outermost ring curved at precisely 66.6 degrees, the latitude of the Antarctic Circle. Another traced an arc at 23.5 degrees, matching the Earth's axial tilt with an accuracy that would make modern astronomers pause. These were not arbitrary numbers. They were planetary constants, embedded in stone, in a place where no light reached, where no foot was meant to tread. The discovery was hushed, the footage mislabeled as structural survey data, the crack sealed. But the images, grainy and fleeting, leaked to a private scholar, and the mystery of the Quadrans Obscurus began to unfold. What was this chamber? Its design suggested a purpose beyond decoration or ritual. The rings, when measured, aligned with the angular increments of a sextant, a tool for celestial navigation, but they extended far beyond what any sailor would need. They reached values that spoke not of stars seen from ships, but of cycles measured across centuries, eclipses, solstices, the slow precession of the Earth's axis. The chamber was not built for travelers or priests. It was built for those who watched the heavens, who counted time not in days but in millennia. The slate, polished to a mirror-like sheen, reflected no light, yet under infrared scans, it revealed faint traces of a metallic dust, not unlike the pigments used in ancient astronomical charts, but bonded to the stone in a way no medieval craft could achieve. The Vatican's archives, vast and labyrinthine, hold a clue, though it is cryptic and incomplete. A document from 1774, buried in a ledger of mundane inventories, mentions a tabula declinata sine legenda, a tilted chart without legend. It is described as an object not to be displayed, not to be studied, but to be kept. No location is given, no author named, only a warning that it was tied to the rhythm of the heavens. The same year, the Church banned several works on Copernican cosmology, citing not just theological concerns but a deeper fear that certain truths, if revealed, might unsettle the order of time itself. Was the Quadrans Obscurus part of this forbidden knowledge? Did it hold a secret so potent that it was buried beneath the heart of ecclesiastical power? Consider the geometry of the chamber. The rings were not perfect circles but ellipses, their curves mirroring the orbits of planets. One arc, when plotted, matched the path of Venus through its 5-point synodic cycle, a pattern that repeats every 8 years. Another traced the eccentric orbit of Mars, its retrograde motion captured in stone with a precision that anticipates Kepler's laws by centuries. The central depression, untouched by dust, suggested a missing piece, a sphere perhaps, or an orb etched with data, a device to complete the map. Renaissance accounts speak of a stone of measure, kept under lock, said to contain the long curve of the firmament. This object vanished during the Napoleonic looting of Rome in the early 19th century, leaving only the empty socket in the chamber's heart. The Quadrans Obscurus is not just a relic, it is a machine, not of gears but of alignment. Its design suggests it was used to track celestial events, to predict the turning of seasons or the shadowing of stars. But why hide such a tool? Why seal it in a chamber with no door? One theory, whispered among those who study the Vatican's secrets, is that the chamber was not meant to guide but to synchronize. It was a place where time itself could be calibrated, where the rhythms of the cosmos could be aligned with human action. The Church, in its early centuries, controlled the calendar, decreeing when Easter fell, when the solstice was celebrated. A device that could predict these cycles with unearthly precision would grant power beyond theology. It would grant mastery over time. But there is a darker possibility. The chamber's angles, its strange resonance, hint at something more than astronomy. When engineers mapped the room, they found that the radial grooves vibrated faintly during solar zeniths, producing a hum too low for human ears but palpable in the bones. This was not random. It matched the frequency of the Schumann resonance, the Earth's natural electromagnetic pulse, a rhythm that some believe connects human consciousness to the planet itself. Could the Quadrans Obscurus be a bridge, not just to the stars but to the mind? Could it have been built to attune those who entered it, to align their thoughts with a cosmic cadence long forgotten? The Vatican's silence on the matter is telling. When researchers requested access to date the chamber's materials, the response was a curt letter stating that no relevant samples existed. No one had claimed they did. The footage, though archived, was never officially acknowledged. The chamber remains sealed, its existence denied, its purpose obscured. Yet the patterns it holds are too precise to be chance. The slate, under microscopic analysis, revealed no tool marks, no chisel scratches, only a smoothness that suggests a technology beyond the medieval world. Some speculate it was not built by the Church but inherited, a relic from an older order, perhaps the Sumerians, or an even earlier civilization whose name we have lost. The Sumerians, after all, built star pits, circular depressions lined with bricks to track the slow crawl of constellations over centuries. The Quadrans Obscurus shares their logic. A map, not of space, but of time. A record, not of places, but of moments. One scholar, studying the leaked images, noted that the chamber's design resembles the harmonic nodes of orbital resonance, points where gravitational forces align to create stable paths through space. If true, the chamber was not just observing the heavens, it was measuring their influence, perhaps even channeling it. For what purpose? Navigation, prophecy, or something stranger still? There is a story, rarely told, in the Vatican's secret archives. A letter from the 15th century, written in Latin with portions in cipher, speaks of a rotunda beneath the seat of Peter that must not be disturbed, for in its measure lies the interval. The interval, what could it mean? A cycle of time, a moment of cosmic alignment, or a truth so vast it could unravel the Church's authority? The letter warns that the circle must not be broken, that its purpose is not to reveal but to contain. Contain what? Knowledge, power, or perhaps memory itself? The chamber's concealment suggests fear, not of heresy but of remembrance. The Church has long guarded secrets, not to deceive, but to protect. In the Middle Ages, texts on planetary motion were suppressed, not because they contradicted Scripture, but because they hinted at a world before the one we know. The Quadrans Obscurus, with its precise angles and silent hum, might be a key to that world. A world where time was not a line, but a cycle, where the stars were not just lights, but guides. If such a tool existed, it would challenge not just theology, but the very structure of history, suggesting that what we call progress is but a shadow of what came before. The missing object at the chamber's center haunts the story. The depression, perfectly circular, suggests a device that completed the quadrant's function. Some believe it was a globe, etched with constellations, a memory device that held the sky's secrets. Others propose it was a crystal, tuned to resonate with the chamber's frequencies, amplifying its connection to the cosmos. Whatever it was, its absence is deliberate. During the Napoleonic Wars, when Rome was sacked, many treasures vanished, but the stone of measure was never listed among them. Was it taken, hidden, or destroyed? Or does it still exist, locked away in a vault we cannot find? The Quadrans Obscurus remains a mystery, not because it is unknown, but because it is unspoken. Its rings, its arcs, its silent resonance speak of a time when humanity looked to the stars not with wonder but with purpose. They suggest a civilization that understood the Earth's place in the cosmos, that measured its tilt and its rhythm with a precision we are only now rediscovering. As you drift through this tale, imagine standing in that chamber, feeling the hum beneath your feet, sensing the weight of a secret too vast to speak. The Quadrans Obscurus is not just a map of the heavens. Wherever you're listening from tonight, perhaps a quiet room in London, a starlit desert in Arizona, or a coastal village in Japan, what time is it there? Let the chamber's silence linger in your thoughts as you drift into the night. In the rugged hills above Sinop, where the Black Sea's salt-laden winds carve secrets into the cliffs, a chamber lay hidden for centuries, its entrance veiled by cedar roots and lichen-covered stone. In 2004, a landslide tore open the hillside, revealing a small, unassuming cave, no more than 5 meters across. Inside, embedded in the floor, was a bronze disc, its surface gleaming with a strange, oily sheen, untouched by rust or time. Its concentric rings, etched with faint radial lines, pulsed with a quiet purpose, as if the metal itself remembered the sky. The disc, unearthed under the scrutiny of Turkish authorities, became known as the Sinop disc, a relic that defies history and whispers of a forgotten intelligence. The disc is not large, perhaps a meter in diameter, but its weight is deceptive, heavier than bronze should be. Its surface, polished to a mirror-like finish, bears no inscriptions, no symbols, only a series of rings, each divided by lines so fine they seem woven rather than carved. The outermost ring holds 3,605 tiny indentations, spiraling inward like a galaxy collapsing into itself. Another ring counts 260, while others defy simple enumeration, their patterns shifting under different angles of light. When first examined, archaeologists thought it a ceremonial shield, a relic of some ancient warrior, but the metal told a different story. Under analysis, it revealed traces of iridium, a rare element more common in meteorites than on Earth, its nickel-to-iron ratio matching fragments from cosmic impacts. This was no earthly bronze. It was forged from the stars. The disk's alignment added to the enigma. It was set precisely to true north, not magnetic but geographic, a feat requiring knowledge of the Earth's axial tilt, a calculation unknown to the ancient peoples of Anatolia. The rings, when mapped, corresponded to celestial cycles, not of days or seasons, but of shadows, the 18-year Saros cycle of eclipses, when the sun and moon align to cast darkness across the Earth. The Sinop disk was not a calendar. It was an eclipse engine, a device that tracked the rhythm of cosmic veils, predicting when the sky would blink. Such precision was unheard of in prehistory, long before Babylon's priests charted the stars in cuneiform. The disk's craftsmanship suggested a technology that should not exist, its surface notched not by chisels but by something finer, as if shaped by vibration or frequency. When the disk was taken to a laboratory in Ankara, researchers noticed something stranger still. Under shifting temperatures, the radial lines glowed faintly, not with light, but with warmth, tracing counterclockwise paths across the bronze. The effect was subtle, lasting hours, like veins pulsing under skin. A seismologist visiting the site reported a low-frequency oscillation, inaudible to the human ear, emanating from the chamber where the disk was found. The hum pulsed every 8.6 seconds, matching a known Earth resonance tied to tidal movements, a planetary breath captured in metal. When the disk was briefly returned to its original chamber for calibration, it came alive. As the sun crossed the horizon, the radial grooves warmed in sequence, as if recognizing the moment of alignment. No replica, crafted with modern alloys and precision machining, could mimic this response. The copies remained inert, silent, dead. The chamber itself offered no further clues. It was empty save for the disk, with no artifacts, no bones, no signs of habitation. The walls, smooth and unadorned, seemed to absorb sound rather than reflect it, creating a stillness that felt deliberate, as if the space was built to listen. Local legends spoke of a stone that whispered in fog, a tale dismissed as superstition until the disk was found. A folk song, recorded in 1897, mentioned a mirror that knew when the sky would blink, a poetic echo that now seemed eerily precise. Could the disk have been a tool of observation, a clock for the heavens, or something more? Eclipses were not mere curiosities in ancient times. They were omens, markers of turning points, moments when the world held its breath. A culture that could predict them held power not just scientific, but symbolic, the ability to name the unseen, to prepare for the shadow. The disk's extraterrestrial composition fuels speculation. Iridium is rare, found in meteorites that struck the Earth long ago. To smelt such a metal requires knowledge of metallurgy far beyond the Bronze Age. The carving technique, under microscopy, showed striations inconsistent with hand tools, as if the lines were etched by a force that resonated rather than cut. One researcher proposed, in a hushed report, that the disk was not made but placed, delivered to the Earth by hands unknown, perhaps as a beacon or a record. The idea is dismissed by mainstream scholars, yet it lingers. The disk's alignment with true north, its connection to eclipse cycles, suggests a purpose beyond human needs. Was it meant for us, or for someone watching from above? The site's isolation adds to the mystery. Sinop's cliffs are not a place of ancient cities or temples. No settlements surrounded the chamber, no roads led to its entrance. It was as if the disk was meant to remain hidden, sealed in a cave that time forgot. Yet its discovery was not the first hint of its existence. A medieval Latin text, tucked away in a Vatican archive, mentions Carte Siderum from the eastern sands, star charts sealed in silence for their forbidden alignments. The text does not describe the charts, only that they turn time backwards. Could the Sinop disk be one of these? Its ability to track eclipses across centuries suggests it was not predicting the future, but recording the past, a map of darkness, of moments when the sky folded into shadow. The disk's central depression, smooth and finger-sized, hints at a missing piece, a lens, a gem, a key, something that completed its function. Without it, the disk is a sentence unfinished, a question unanswered. Attempts to study it further were curtailed. The chamber was resealed, citing erosion risks, though those who saw it speak of a feeling that lingered, a sense of being watched, not by eyes but by time itself. The disk now rests in a secure vault, labelled as an ornamental astrological plate, its true nature obscured. But its presence is an itch in the fabric of history, a reminder that some artifacts do not belong to the world we know. If the disk was forged from meteoritic metal, it suggests a people who understood the cosmos not as myth but as material, who could harness the remnants of stars to build tools of precision. If it tracked eclipses, it implies a culture that saw time not as a river but as a cycle, a rhythm to be measured and mastered. And if it was hidden, it raises the question of why. Was it buried to protect its knowledge, or to protect us from it? Some whisper of a lost civilization, one that sailed the seas before the floods, that charted the heavens before the stars shifted. Others speak of visitors, not from Earth, but from elsewhere, leaving behind a device to mark their passage. The synop disk is more than bronze and iridium. It is a pulse, a memory, a question etched in metal. Its rings do not merely trace the sky, they hold it, as if the heavens themselves could be captured and kept. The disk does not speak, but it listens, waiting for the moment when the stars align once more, when the shadow falls, and the truth it holds begins to stir. High on a windswept ridge above the Pacific coast of Ecuador, where roots twist through earth and moss clings to stone, a slab of basalt lay half-buried for centuries, mistaken by locals for a simple stepping stone on a goat path. In 1972, construction workers disturbed the ground, and what emerged was no ordinary rock. Measuring just under 2 meters long, its surface was etched with grooves and raised nodes, a pattern too deliberate to be natural, too intricate to be art. The stone, dense and unyielding, bore no script, no signature, only a map not of the land beneath, but of the vast ocean beyond, its lines tracing islands, currents, and a continent now drowned beneath the waves. This is the Ecuador stone, a relic that charts a world lost to time, a map that whispers of Zealandia, a sunken land only recently acknowledged by science. The stone's carvings are precise, almost clinical, a curved line arcs across one edge, mimicking the path of the equatorial current that sweeps through the Pacific. Scattered depressions mark the positions of islands, some still above water, others long submerged as seamounts, known only through modern sonar. Most startlingly, a central formation aligns with Zealandia, a submerged continent stretching beneath the South Pacific, formally recognized by geologists in 2017. The stone's age, determined by thermoluminescence dating, places its last exposure to sunlight at roughly 12,400 years ago, just before the Younger Dryas, a cataclysmic cooling event that reshaped the Earth's coasts. This was a time when no known culture carved maps in stone, when the Pacific's vastness was a mystery to all but the waves themselves. Yet here, in basalt, is a chart of oceanic precision, a record of a world no human should have seen. The grooves are not random scratches. They run parallel to known wind patterns, their angles tilted 7 degrees off modern north, a discrepancy that matches the Earth's axial shift estimated for that ancient era. The nodes, raised like tiny islands, correspond to real locations, some to atolls still inhabited, others to submerged ridges, only mapped in the late 20th century. The stone's depiction of Zealandia is particularly unsettling. Its outline, though simplified, captures the continent's submerged plateaus with an accuracy that defies chance. Zealandia, now 94% underwater, was once a landmass larger than Australia, its peaks rising above the sea. The stone suggests someone walked its shores, charted its edges, and understood its place in the ocean's dance of currents and winds. Who were they, and how did they know? Unlike other relics, the Ecuador stone is not hidden in a vault or sealed in a chamber. It lay exposed, ignored, its purpose forgotten until a bulldozer's blade brought it to light. Yet its survival feels deliberate, as if the earth itself chose to preserve it beneath layers of root and soil. The carvings mirror the navigational stick charts of Polynesian voyagers, those delicate webs of wood and shell used to teach the art of sailing by feel, by wave, by star. But this stone predates Polynesian culture by 10 millennia, raising a question that lingers like salt on the air. Did the Polynesians inherit their knowledge, or were they echoing something far older, a tradition born when Zealandia still stood above the waves? The stone's function is as mysterious as its origin. Its weight, nearly immovable, suggests it was not meant to be carried, but to remain, a fixed point in a shifting world. One theory posits it as a teaching tool, a tactile map where elders train navigators, their fingers tracing grooves to memorize the ocean's rhythms. The raised nodes, smooth to the touch, could have been pressed to mark waypoints, embedding knowledge in muscle and mind. But the stone's precision goes beyond navigation. Computer models, run in the late 20th century, revealed that its flow paths anticipate seasonal shifts in Pacific currents, changes invisible from the surface. This implies not just observation but study, a systematic understanding of forces that span decades, even centuries. No culture from 12,000 years ago is credited with such knowledge, yet the stone stands as evidence, unyielding and silent. Local legends offer fragments of insight. Among the indigenous peoples of coastal Ecuador, stories speak of a homeland beneath the sea, a place of black stone where the world's paths were carved. These tales, passed through generations, describe voyagers who sailed not to conquer but to remember, their boats guided by maps that spoke to the hands rather than the eyes. The stone's material, basalt, dense and resistant to erosion, matches these descriptions, its surface polished as if kissed by countless fingers. Could it have been a classroom, a sacred site where knowledge was not written but felt, where the ocean's pulse was taught to those who would carry it forward? The Younger Dryas looms large in the stone's story. This sudden climatic shift, around 12,000 years ago, saw sea levels rise, submerging coastlines and swallowing lands like Zealandia. If the stone was carved just before this event, it might be a snapshot of a world on the brink, a final record before the floods came. The precision of its carvings suggests a people who knew their home was slipping away, who etched their memory into basalt to outlast the waves. But why here, on a ridge above the Pacific? Why not a scroll, a tablet, something portable? The stone's immobility hints at a deeper purpose, perhaps as an anchor, a marker meant to endure when all else was lost. Speculation turns to darker corners. Some propose the stone is evidence of a maritime civilization, one that thrived not on land but on the sea, its monuments, not cities but roots, its legacy, not walls but waves. Such a culture would leave few traces, boats rot, harbors sink, but a stone map, carved in basalt, could survive. Others whisper of a deliberate erasure, a concerted effort to forget. The stone's discovery, so late in the 20th century, feels like a defiance of that silence, as if it refused to be buried. No accompanying artifacts were found, no tools, no settlements, only the stone itself, standing alone like a sentinel. The science of the stone is as compelling as its mystery. Its thermoluminescence dating, conducted in the 1970s, confirmed its age, aligning with the end of the last ice age. The carving's alignment with modern oceanographic data currents, wind patterns, submerged landforms, suggests a knowledge of geography and hydrodynamics that rivals satellite mapping. Yet the stone's simplicity, its lack of adornment, speaks of a culture focused not on display but on function. It is not art. It is information, raw and unfiltered, a map meant for those who knew how to read it. One detail, almost overlooked, deepens the enigma. Along the stone's base, a sequence of shallow notches, spaced with rhythmic precision, approximates a 6-year tidal cycle, a pattern tied to the moon's influence on the seas. The notches are not exact, but they are too close to dismiss as chance. This suggests the stone was not just a map, but a record of change, a tool to track the ocean's moods across years. Such knowledge requires time, observation, and a continuity of culture that history does not grant to the peoples of 12,000 years ago. The Ecuador stone now rests in a regional museum, displayed with a modest plaque that calls it a prehistoric cartographic device of unknown origin. The label avoids its deeper implications, sidesteps the questions it raises. No mention is made of Zealandia, no hint of a civilization that might have walked its shores. It suggests a world where the Pacific was not a barrier but a highway, where navigators sailed with maps of stone, where knowledge was carved to outlast the floods. As you trace its grooves in your mind, imagine those ancient voyagers, their hands on basalt, their eyes on the horizon, carrying a truth that time could not erase. In the sun-scorched sands of ancient Mesopotamia, where the city of Sippar once stood as a beacon of civilization, a clay tablet lay buried, its edges cracked, but its secrets intact. Unearthed in the late 19th century by an expedition mapping the ruins of Babylon's forgotten neighbors, this was no ordinary relic. It bore no tales of kings, No hymns to gods, only a series of markings, angles, coordinates, star names that spoke of a sky not seen for millennia. Labeled in Akkadian script as positions above, the Sippar tablet mapped a celestial landscape from 10,000 years ago, from a latitude far north of Mesopotamia, where no known culture should have stood. Its measurements, precise and deliberate, challenge everything we know about the dawn of history, whispering of a people who watched the stars with eyes we cannot imagine. The tablet is small, no larger than a hand, its surface etched with wedges and curves that puzzled even the most seasoned epigraphers. Unlike the astronomical charts of Babylonian priests, which tracked eclipses and planetary motions with meticulous care, this tablet described constellations unfamiliar to the region. Its angles aligned with a vantage point near the Arctic Circle, a place of ice and silence where no Mesopotamian ever ventured. When cross-referenced with modern star maps, the coordinates revealed an unsettling truth. They captured the sky as it appeared over 10,000 years ago, before the rise of cities, before the invention of writing, before the first seeds of agriculture took root. The tablet's data was not a guess, but a calculation, its precision rivaling the software of our own observatories. What makes the Sippar tablet so extraordinary is its age. Radiocarbon dating of the clay, conducted in the early 20th century, placed its creation around 3,000 years before the Common Era. Yet the sky it describes is far older, predating any known civilization in the region. The measurements are not vague approximations, but mathematical certainties, with angular separations noted to half-degree precision. A double wedge mark, once thought decorative, aligns with modern trigonometric functions, suggesting a system of celestial navigation that should not exist. The tablet's clarity is unnerving, as if its makers understood not just the stars but their movement through time, a knowledge that defies the boundaries of prehistory. The discovery was not singular. Other tablets, found in Sippar and nearby Eridu, bore similar markings, each pointing to the same ancient sky. But some were shattered, not by time but by force, their fragments scorched as if burned deliberately. In one excavation, 3 star maps were found crushed, while surrounding artifacts remained untouched. This was no accident. Someone, long ago, wanted these records erased, their knowledge silenced. The question is why? What truth did these tablets hold that warranted such destruction? Were they relics of a forgotten science, or something more, a map of a world that no longer fit the stories we tell? One theory points to the Younger Dryas, a cataclysmic event around 12,800 years ago, when the Earth's climate shifted abruptly, flooding coasts and reshaping continents. Some believe the tablets are fragments of a lost civilization's knowledge, survivors of a catastrophe that drowned their cities and scattered their people. These survivors, perhaps fleeing to higher ground, carried their star maps in clay, embedding them in myth and memory until they reached the scribes of Mesopotamia. The tablets, in this view, are not just records but fossils, echoes of a time when humanity looked to the heavens with a purpose we have forgotten. Another detail deepens the mystery. One tablet, now housed in the British Museum, includes not only star positions but arcs that resemble latitude lines on Earth. These lines intersect at points corresponding to ancient sites now buried beneath desert and sea locations like Göbekli Tepe, submerged ruins off Yonaguni, and the sunken pillars of Lake Titicaca. No culture from the 3rd millennium before the Common Era had reason to chart the Earth in this way. Yet the tablet's curves match the planet's actual curvature with a precision measurable in modern degrees. This was not a sky map alone, but a bridge between heaven and earth, a record of places that no longer exist, drawn by hands that knew the world's shape long before Eratosthenes measured its shadow. The implications are staggering. If the Sippar tablets are accurate, they suggest to people who not only observed the stars but understood their place in a global system. They knew the Earth was round, its surface mappable, its skies predictable. Such knowledge requires observatories, instruments, and a continuity of culture that history denies to the time before cities. Could these tablets be the work of a maritime network, a civilization that sailed the ancient seas, linking distant lands with starlight? Or were they copying something older, a library of clay that survived the floods, its meaning lost but its forms preserved. The tablet's destruction raises darker questions. In the 1920s, archaeologists noted that some were deliberately smashed, their surfaces charred as if targeted. In Mesopotamia, where the sky was a story of gods and power, a map of an older sky might have been heresy. A medieval Latin text, found in a Vatican archive, hints at this fear, mentioning star charts from the eastern sands that were sealed in silence for their ability to turn time backwards. The phrase, repeated in 3 separate letters, suggests a knowledge too potent to be shared, a truth that could unravel the order of empires. The Sippar tablet, with its silent coordinates, is a riddle without a key. They resemble the notations of a science we have not yet rediscovered, a language of angles and stars that speaks to those who know how to listen. One researcher, studying the tablet's markings, proposed they were not records but fragments of a larger system, a celestial code copied by scribes who no longer understood its purpose. Like rituals kept alive after their meaning faded, the tablets were preserved, perhaps out of reverence, perhaps out of fear. As you ponder this ancient clay, imagine the hands that pressed it, the eyes that scanned a sky 10,000 years gone. Were they astronomers, priests, or something else, keepers of a truth that could not be spoken? The tablet does not answer. It only points, upward and outward, to a time when the stars were not just lights but guides, when the earth was not just home but a map. If this mystery has sparked your curiosity, consider subscribing and tapping the bell to join us for more tales of the past that linger in the shadows. Wherever you're watching, maybe leave a comment about what ancient secret you'd love to uncover next. Beneath the ancient stones of a Toledo chapel, where the air carries the weight of centuries and the scent of incense lingers, a narrow staircase descends into darkness. Discovered in 1969 by workers repairing a cracked tile, the passage led to a crypt, cold and dry, sealed from the world above. At its heart stood a single object, a cube of dark stone, wrapped in oxidized copper mesh, its edges so precise they seemed to defy the touch of human hands. Measuring exactly 22 centimeters on each side, the cube absorbed light rather than reflected it, its surface smooth, as if polished by time itself. Known as La Piedra Muda, the mute stone, it is no mere relic. It hums with a presence that unsettles, a vibration that speaks not to the ears but to the bones, hinting at a purpose buried deeper than the chapel's foundations. The cube is not basalt as first assumed, nor any stone known to the quarries of Iberia. Laboratory tests revealed a composition of silicon, hematite, and an unknown bonding agent, a synthetic material that resists replication even with modern technology. Its age, determined by thermoluminescence dating, stretches back to 10,000 years before the Common Era, predating every known structure in the region. This was no artifact of the chapel's 12th century builders, nor of the Visigoths or Romans who came before. It was placed in the crypt deliberately, encased in copper, as if to shield it or to shield the world from it. The cube's northern face bears a shallow relief, not of letters or figures, but of intersecting grooves, a lattice like frozen waves, each line converging with a precision that suggests calculation rather than art. When aligned to magnetic north, the cube does something extraordinary. It vibrates, not audibly, but palpably, a soft hum felt in the fingertips, like a pulse beneath the skin. Researchers who touched it described a sensation of pressure, not mechanical but almost alive, as if the stone were responding to their presence. In 1977, a minor tremor outside Toledo triggered an anomaly. The cube warmed by a single degree above ambient temperature for 6 hours, then returned to stasis. No explanation was found. Instruments failed to measure the vibration's source, detecting only a faint resonance that matched the Schumann frequency, the Earth's electromagnetic heartbeat. The cube, it seemed, was tuned to the planet itself, a silent instrument playing a note no one could hear. The crypt's walls offered further clues. Under infrared scanning, they revealed etched arcs and concentric circles, invisible to the naked eye, their angles corresponding to the synodic periods of Venus, Mars, and Jupiter. These were not random markings, but a celestial clock, a map of planetary rhythms carved into stone. The cube, at the chamber's center, acted as a focal point, its lattice amplifying the room's geometry. One physicist, granted brief access in 1983, proposed that the grooves aligned with the Earth's natural electromagnetic fields, suggesting the cube was not a record but a resonator, a device to synchronize human consciousness with cosmic cycles. His notes, later suppressed, describe dreams of tunnels and shifting stars after touching the stone, a vision so vivid he abandoned his career and retreated to a monastery. Local legends in Toledo speak of Los Callados, the quiet ones, figures who appeared at the edges of history, cloaked and silent, always near moments of upheaval. They carried stones that whispered in the dark, not with words but with weight, a presence that lingered in the mind. One tale, recorded in the 17th century, tells of a traveller who slept near the chapel and woke with patterns etched in the frost beside him, shapes no one could name. The cube's effect on those who studied it was consistent, dreams of geometric forms, of sequences too vast to grasp, of a certainty that something ancient waited just beyond recall. A linguist, after handling the stone, reported a fleeting sense of speaking a language she did not know, its syllables fading as she woke. The cube's origins are a mystery. Its synthetic composition, blending silicon and hematite, suggests a technology unknown to prehistory. No tools from 10,000 years ago could craft such precision, yet the cube's edges are sharper than surgical steel, its surface unmarred by time. Some speculate it was forged by a lost civilization, one that understood metallurgy and resonance in ways we cannot replicate. Others propose a more radical idea, that the cube is a memory core, not mechanical, but informational, encoding knowledge in its lattice, meant to be felt rather than read. The copper mesh, oxidized but intact, might have served as a conductor, channeling the cube's energy or shielding it from interference. Its placement in the crypt, beneath a chapel dedicated to Saint Isidore, suggests a deliberate act of concealment, as if the builders knew its power and chose to guard it. The church's response to the discovery was swift and silent. In 1994, the cube was reclaimed from a Madrid laboratory and moved to a classified vault. All documentation was sealed, and researchers were bound by silence agreements. The chapel's staircase, once exposed, was resealed, its entrance hidden behind new tiles. Yet whispers persist. A single archival note, dated to the 15th century, mentions a stone of silence beneath Toledo, a relic that holds the rhythm of the unseen. The note, written in a monk's trembling hand, warns against touching it, lest it awaken what sleeps. What could this mean? Was the cube a tool, a beacon, or a warning? The crypt's architecture adds to the enigma. Its walls, though plain, were cut with angles slightly off from true, creating a subtle dissonance in the space. Sound behaved strangely there. Whispers carried while shouts faded. Tests with tuning forks revealed a resonance at 432 Hz, a frequency tied to ancient musical scales, causing the cube's lattice to pulse faintly, as if answering. The chamber, like the cube, seemed designed not for worship but for alignment, a place where the Earth's pulse met the human mind. One theory suggests it was part of a network, a series of sites across the globe where such stones were placed to anchor knowledge, to preserve a truth too fragile for words. The cube's silence is its loudest feature. It does not speak, yet it compels. Those who stood near it reported a weight in the air, a sense of being watched, not by eyes but by time itself. The lattice, under ultraviolet light, revealed patterns that shifted with the observer's angle, like a hologram woven into stone. Some believe it encodes a map, not of places but of moments, a chronology of cosmic events or human thought. Others see it as a relic of a forgotten science, a technology that used resonance to bridge the physical and the ethereal. Whatever its purpose, La Piedra Muda is a question mark in stone, a fragment of a world that knew more than we allow. As you linger on this tale, picture the cube in its crypt, its lattice humming softly, its secrets locked in silence. Imagine the quiet ones, their cloaks brushing the earth, placing it there to wait for what we cannot say. The stone does not yield its truth, but it holds it, patient and unyielding, a whisper from a time when the earth itself sang. Beneath the towering spires of Angkor Wat, where the jungle whispers and stone gods stand sentinel, a hidden chamber waits in darkness. Uncovered in 2011 during structural repairs, a narrow shaft, long thought to lead nowhere, opened into a subterranean room, cloaked in dust and silence. No deities adorned its walls, no carvings of battles or prayers, only a series of elliptical grooves etched across the floor, looping like orbits in a cosmic dance. Each groove was marked by precise notches, their intervals too measured to be chance, their paths mirroring the movements of planets Mars, Venus, Mercury etched in stone 1,000 years before telescopes pierced the sky. This is the celestial chamber of Angkor, a relic of a knowledge so advanced it defies the history of the Khmer Empire, a map not of the earth but of the heavens' eternal waltz. The chamber is small, its ceiling low, forcing those who enter to bow before the patterns below. At its center lies a circular depression, no wider than a coin, polished to a glassy sheen, aligned with the exact coordinates of Earth's equator. The grooves, radiating outward, trace the eccentric orbits of planets with a precision that stunned archaeologists. The longest curve follows Mars's wandering path, capturing its retrograde motion, a dance of backward steps that baffled astronomers until Kepler's laws in the 17th century. Another groove matches Venus's 584-day cycle, corrected for Earth's rotation, a calculation requiring centuries of observation. The smallest arc traces Mercury's swift orbit, its 88-day sprint around the Sunday. The Khmer Empire, renowned for its temples and irrigation systems, left no record of this chamber. Their inscriptions speak of solar and lunar alignments, of kings and gods, but nothing of planetary orbits or celestial mechanics. Yet the chamber's design suggests a science far beyond its time. When researchers overlaid the grooves with modern astronomical models, the match was undeniable, the errors less than a degree. This was not a temple for worship, but a vault for knowledge, a place where the cosmos was not revered but calculated. The central depression, untouched by the centuries' dust, hints at a missing component, a lens perhaps, or a crystal that focused starlight, completing the chamber's purpose. Without it, the room is a puzzle, its full meaning locked away. What sets the celestial chamber apart is its silence. No inscriptions explain its purpose, no legends frame its existence, yet its geometry speaks. The floor's patterns, when measured, align with the harmonic resonance of orbital nodes, points where gravitational forces intersect to create stable paths through space. This suggests the chamber was not just observing the planets, but mapping their influence, perhaps their pull on Earth or on the minds of those who stood within. During a rare survey, technicians reported a faint vibration in the stone, triggered by the solstice sun, a hum that matched the frequency of planetary alignments. The sound was too low for ears to catch, but it stirred a sense of unease, as if the room itself were alive, attuned to a rhythm older than the temple above. The chamber's discovery was quickly suppressed. Labeled a non-ritual substructure of geometric complexity, it was resealed, deemed structurally unsafe. Yet those who studied it, in stolen moments before the closure, found clues that pointed beyond the Khmer. The Temple of Angkor Wat itself is a cosmic map, its central tower's height to the outer walls forming a ratio that approximates Earth's distance to the Sun in lunar units. The temple's axis, offset slightly from true east, aligns with Venus's rising point on a specific 5-point synodic cycle. These are not coincidences but calculations, built into the stone by architects who knew more than their inscriptions reveal. Could the chamber be a remnant of an older tradition, inherited by the Khmer, its origins lost in the jungle's embrace? One theory, whispered among rogue scholars, suggests the chamber was not built by the Khmer but found by them, a relic of a civilization that predates recorded history. The groove's precision recalls the star charts of ancient Sumer, where priests tracked celestial cycles with clay and reed. But Sumer's knowledge was crude compared to this, lacking the mathematical depth of the chamber's orbits. Some propose a connection to a lost maritime culture, one that sailed the Indian Ocean, linking India, Southeast Asia, and beyond, carrying knowledge of the stars in their ships' holds. Others venture further, suggesting the chamber's design hints at contact with an intelligence beyond Earth, its patterns too perfect for human hands alone. A faint clue lies in a Khmer myth, rarely spoken outside monastic circles. It tells of those who watched from the mountain that moved, beings who traced circles in dust and taught stones to follow the sky. Dismissed as allegory, the story takes on new weight in the chamber's shadow. The temple's builders may have revered the site, constructing Angkor Wat atop it, not to claim it, but to guard it. The chamber's grooves, under ultraviolet light, revealed traces of a mineral dust, lapis and cinnabar known for their conductive properties, as if the floor were designed to channel energy, not just light. One researcher, testing the acoustics, found that a low chant at 260 Hz caused the grooves to resonate, the sound folding inward to the central depression, as if the room were listening. The chamber's isolation is its most haunting feature. Hidden beneath layers of bat guano and centuries of darkness, it was not meant for pilgrims or priests. Its low ceiling, its stark walls, suggest a space for solitary focus, for those who understood its purpose. A French explorer in the 1920s documented copper scrolls found in a nearby ruin, inscribed with a phrase repeated 3 times, "Do not open the orbit. The key is not time." Was the chamber a tool for prediction, for alignment, or for something stranger, a device to anchor human thought to the cosmos's rhythm? The celestial chamber raises questions that echo beyond Angkor's stones. If its makers knew the planet's orbits, they understood time not as a line but as a cycle, a pattern that repeats across millennia. Was it too dangerous, too sacred, or simply too alien for the world above? The chamber's resealing, its dismissal as a mere substructure, feels like an act of erasure, as if its truth threatens the history we cling to. As you wander its imagined grooves, picture the hands that carved them, the minds that calculated the stars' paths, the silence that guards their secret. The celestial chamber is not just a map of the heavens. It is a mirror, reflecting a world we have yet to reclaim. If the mystery of this ancient knowledge captivates you, dive deeper into our playlist, Lost Civilizations, where more forgotten wonders await to spark your imagination. In the shifting sands of the Nile Delta, where the river's ancient arms weave through a landscape now claimed by agriculture, a forgotten relic surfaced in 1934. A British expedition, tracing an old Roman road, uncovered a granite slab buried beneath layers of compacted clay. Its surface, polished by hands long gone, bore no names, no dates, only a delicate network of grooves that traced a river no longer known, a ghost delta, erased from geography and memory. This is the Nile Stone, a map of a waterway that vanished thousands of years before the pharaohs, a testament to a world that history has chosen to forget. The slab's carvings are not the broad strokes of an artist's whim, but the precise lines of a cartographer who knew the water's ways. Channels branch and weave, thinning as they spread, widening toward a terminal mouth, their curves capturing the logic of a river's flow. At first, archaeologists mistook it for a depiction of the Nile itself, but the paths diverged where none should, curling westward in a pattern alien to the river's modern course. When overlaid with satellite imagery in the late 20th century, the truth emerged. The stone mapped a tributary, now dry, that once cut laterally across the Sahara, linking the heart of Africa to the Nile's embrace. This was no minor stream but a corridor of water, vast enough to carry boats, trade, and ideas across a desert now barren. Hydrological modeling, using soil samples and sediment deposits, confirmed the impossible. The Sahara, now a sea of sand, once cradled a river fed by a source far to the west, perhaps the Chad Basin. Its flow sustained a network of life, connecting regions thought isolated in antiquity. The stone, dated to 3,800 years ago through comparative erosion and quarry records, captured a landscape that had vanished long before, swallowed by tectonic shifts and desert winds thousands of years earlier. Whoever carved it knew a world already lost, their hands tracing a memory of water with an intimacy that suggests not just knowledge but longing. The stone's precision is haunting. Its scale matches geographic distances, adjusted for the Earth's curvature, a feat requiring tools and understanding beyond the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, where it was crafted. The tributaries thin with mathematical accuracy, their angles reflecting the behavior of water, not merely its shape. This was no symbolic map, but a record of lived experience, as if its maker had sailed those currents, felt their pull, and known their secrets. Yet no texts from the period mention this river. No scrolls, no stelae, no papyrus speaks of a waterway crossing the Sahara. The silence is deafening, as if the river was not just dried up but erased, its memory scrubbed from the annals of Egypt. Why would such a river vanish from history? The Nile stone offers no answers, only questions. Its discovery, in a place with no nearby temples or settlements, feels deliberate, as if it was buried to be forgotten. One theory suggests it was the work of a lone scribe, compiling oral traditions of a legendary waterway, preserving them in stone to outlast time. Another posits a maritime culture, older than dynastic Egypt, that thrived along this river, its cities now dust, its people scattered when the waters receded. The stone could be their last testament, a map of a homeland lost to the sands. But a darker hypothesis lingers, that the river was erased not by nature, but by intent, its course diverted, its memory silenced to control the flow of power. The Sahara holds clues that support this mystery. Cave paintings, far from any modern water, depict boats gliding through a green landscape, their hulls carved with motifs found in Sahelian tombs, some bearing Egyptian symbols. Papyrus fragments, discovered in desert burials, hint at trade routes that stretched impossibly far inland. The Nile stone's map aligns with these anomalies, suggesting a corridor that linked civilizations, not through slow caravans but swift currents. If such a river existed, it would rewrite the history of Africa, connecting cultures long thought separate, carrying goods, ideas, and perhaps truths too dangerous to keep. A rare text from Karnak, seldom translated, deepens the enigma. Inscribed on a stela, it speaks of a gate behind the waters, warning, "Let no map draw the mouths that lie beyond." Scholars dismiss it as metaphor, a poetic caution against hubris, but its words align too closely with the stone's silent river. Was this gate a physical place, a delta now lost, or something more a passage of knowledge, a cosmology too divergent to fit Egypt's rigid order? The stone's grooves, under close inspection, bear faint traces of mineral dust ochre and malachite, suggesting they were once highlighted, meant to be seen, perhaps studied, before being buried. The implications stretch beyond geography. If the river connected distant lands, it could explain anomalies in the archaeological record, beads from the Indus Valley in Nubian graves, tools in the Sahara, with Egyptian designs. One fringe scholar noted that the stone's branching patterns resemble the layout of Orion's belt, as it appeared 10,000 years ago, a constellation sacred to both Egyptian and Nubian cultures. The connection is tenuous, but the pattern persists, a river in stone mirroring a river in the sky. The Nile stone now rests in a regional depot, unmarked, its significance reduced to a footnote in a surveyor's report. No plaque names the river it charts, no display hints at its challenge to history. As you trace its lines in your mind, imagine the boats that once sailed its currents, the voices that called across its banks, the hands that carved its memory into stone. The Nile stone is not just a map, it is a lament, a whisper of a river that was, and a question of why it was made to disappear. High in the Peruvian Andes, where the air thins to a whisper and shadows cut sharp against the stone, a platform of andesite stands alone, its edges curved like a crescent moon, gazing at an unseen sky. Known to locals as Pedra del Silencio, the Stone of Silence, it aligns with no cardinal point, no solar path, no temple ruin. Its blocks, cut with a precision that mocks modern tools, seem to hum with a purpose older than the Incas, older than memory itself. In 2002, a team of acousticians, surveying the site for cultural preservation, stumbled upon a phenomenon that defied explanation. When a low tone was sounded at the platform's centre, the stone answered not with an echo but with a modulation, a folding of sound that felt alive. It is a resonator, a silent amplifier of forces unseen, guarding a secret beneath the Andean earth. The platform is unassuming, its surface worn by centuries of wind and frost, yet unyielding to erosion. Its crescent edge, subtle and smooth, traces a line that seems to follow something beyond the horizon, as if pointing to a landscape lost to time. Beneath it, ground-penetrating radar revealed a cavity, not a natural hollow but a chamber carved with geometric precision, its shape mirroring the curve above. The chamber, filled with loose stone and dust, was inaccessible without risking collapse, but its presence suggested the platform was no foundation. It was a lid, sealing something below. When the acousticians tested the site, they found that only specific frequencies, between 18 and 22 Hz, triggered a response. These infrasound waves, too low for human ears, stirred sensations of unease, dizziness, even fleeting visions, as if the stone were speaking to the mind itself. Infrasound is a strange force, known to science for its ability to bypass conscious hearing and touch the body directly, quickening the pulse or clouding the thoughts. The platform's ability to modulate these frequencies was not random. It was engineered, the stone's composition andesite laced with quartz acting as a natural conductor. When a tone was sounded, the sound did not scatter, but folded along the crescent, guided by the platform's shape, converging in a standing wave that pulsed like a heartbeat. Those who stood at the center reported a pressure without touch, a warmth without heat, as if the stone were alive, responding to their presence. One researcher, lingering too long, described a vision of spiraling lights, not in the sky but within, as if the platform had unlocked a door in the mind. The site's isolation is part of its enigma. Surrounded by rugged peaks far from any ancient city, it feels like a sentinel, placed where only the determined would find it. Local traditions speak of a stone that listens, a place where the earth itself could hear the prayers of the ancients. These stories, passed through Quechua communities, tell of a time when the Andes were a crossroads, not of roads but of energies, where stones were set to capture the world's pulse. The platform's design supports this idea. Its crescent aligns with no known astronomical event but with a ley line, an invisible thread connecting ancient sites like Tiahuanaco and Cusco, each noted for their own acoustic anomalies. Could the Pedra del Silencio be part of a network, a system of stone amplifiers tuned to a frequency we no longer understand? The chamber below adds weight to this theory. Its symmetry, revealed by radar, suggests a deliberate construction, not a cave but a vault, its walls shaped to resonate with the platform above. No artifacts were found, no inscriptions to guide interpretation, but the chamber's acoustics were telling. When simulated tones were played, the cavity amplified them, creating a feedback loop that vibrated the platform's surface. This was no accident. The stone was designed to channel sound, to focus it, not into noise but into presence, as if it were meant to awaken something or someone. One hypothesis, rarely voiced, suggests the chamber was a receiver, not for sound but for intention, a place where the ancients aligned their minds with forces beyond the physical. The platform's age is uncertain, but its material andesite, quarried from peaks hundreds of kilometers away, hints at an origin predating the Inca. Thermoluminescence tests on nearby stones suggest activity as early as 8,000 years before the Common Era, a time when the Andes were home to nomadic peoples, not monument builders. Yet the precision of the cuts, the seamless joints, rivals the finest Inca masonry, suggesting a craft lost to history. Some speculate the platform was built by a culture that understood sound as a tool, not just for music but for transformation, using infrasound to alter consciousness or commune with the Earth's deeper rhythms. Modern studies show that frequencies in the 18 to 22 Hz range can induce meditative states or disorientation, a phenomenon the ancients might have harnessed deliberately. A darker theory lingers. The platform's isolation, its lack of adornment, suggests it was not meant for public ritual but for a select few, perhaps initiates or guardians of a knowledge too potent for the masses. In 2003, a local shaman, consulted during the survey, spoke of a stone that guards the silence, warning that its voice could unsettle those unprepared. He described an ancient practice, now lost, where elders stood upon such stones to hear the mountain's breath, a ritual that left them changed, their eyes distant, their words few. The platform's ability to modulate infrasound supports this, suggesting it was a tool for transcending the ordinary, for touching a realm beyond sight. The Pedra del Silencio remains in place, untouched by excavation, its chamber sealed by time and caution. Its plaque in a nearby museum calls it a ceremonial platform, a sterile label that ignores its resonance, its mystery. Yet those who have stood upon it speak of a stillness that hums, a silence that presses against the skin. The stone does not reveal its purpose, but it holds it, patient and unyielding, a sentinel of a truth that waits. As you envision its crescent curve, imagine the ancients standing there, their voices low, their minds open to a frequency that binds stone to sky, earth to spirit. Are you listening from a bustling city like Sao Paulo, a quiet town in the Scottish Highlands, or somewhere under the vast Australian stars? What hour is it where you are, as this Andean mystery carries you toward dreams? In a forest near the banks of the Danube, where mist curls through trees and the ground softens underfoot, a stone stands half buried beneath a shroud of moss and ivy. But to those who have studied its edges, its weight, its quiet defiance of the ordinary, it is something else entirely. The witness stone, a sentinel of secrets that distorts the air around it and bends the rules of the world we know. First noted during the Austro-Hungarian cartographic surveys of 1893, this stone does not merely sit, it waits, its presence stirring a restlessness in those who linger too long. The surveyor who first documented it wrote of a curious anomaly. His compass, reliable across miles of wilderness, faltered as he approached, its needle spinning in a slow, counterclockwise dance, counter to the Earth's rotation. He attributed it to iron deposits, but later tests found no magnetic source. The effect persisted, consistent and unyielding, forming a spiral field centered not on the stone's surface but 30 centimeters beneath its core, as if anchored to something deeper, something absent. For decades, the stone was ignored, lost to wars and shifting borders, the forest growing denser around it. In 1974, a Soviet geomagnetic team revisited the site, equipped with magnetometers and gravity meters. What they found defied their instruments. Closed loops of magnetic energy, drifting slowly, orbiting an invisible point, a phenomenon one scientist described in a private notebook as a magnetic echo circling something no longer present. The stone itself is unremarkable at first glance, its surface unmarked by carvings or script, its shape rough but oddly symmetrical. Yet under muon tomography, a technique used to image dense structures, it revealed an internal network of channels hexagonal, intersecting, descending into the earth like veins of a forgotten organism. These were not natural fissures but deliberate voids, a geometry too precise for chance. Attempts to excavate around the stone failed. The ground hardened beneath tools, resisting displacement as if it had chosen to protect what lay below. When struck with a tuning fork, the stone resonated, not with a single note, but with overtones that shifted with the moon's phases 18 Hz during new moons, rising to 25 during full moons. These frequencies, at the edge of human perception, stirred unease in those nearby, a sensation of sound felt rather than heard. Local folklore weaves a strange tapestry around the stone. Village tales speak of children drawn to its silence, their hands tracing its surface, only to return with stories of dreams filled with numbers and shapes too vast to name. One account, recorded in the early 20th century, tells of a man who slept against the stone for 3 nights and woke to find words in an unknown language etched in the frost beside him. Animals, by contrast, avoid the stone's shadow, their paths curving wide as if repelled by an unseen force. The forest itself seems complicit. Its trees, unnaturally uniform, form rows that defy natural growth. Tree ring analysis, conducted in the 1980s, showed they sprouted simultaneously centuries ago, their seeds scattered in a perfect grid, their branches bending outward, as if leaning away from the stone's presence. From above, the grove forms a mandala, its outer boundary aligning with solstitial azimuths, its inner rings tracing minor lunar standstills. The stone sits at the center, motionless, anchoring a map written not in ink but in the inclination of wood and earth. Its magnetic anomaly, mapped in detail, suggests it is not a singular object but part of a system. Similar stones, dubbed witness stones, have been identified in the Carpathians, Armenia, and the Siberian taiga, each exhibiting distorted fields and internal channels, each marking a site where the Earth seems to remember something lost. One theory, proposed in a forgotten Eastern European institute, posits that the stone is a placeholder, a marker for a moment, or a presence that no longer exists, its resonance a faint echo of a larger design. The stone's effect on those who approach it is subtle but persistent. Researchers reported dizziness, not from motion but from a sense of displacement, as if the ground beneath shifted without moving. One geologist, after hours near the stone, described a dream of spiraling paths descending through layers of light, a sensation of falling upward. Mechanical watches, curiously, continued ticking when electronic devices failed, but they gained time, as if seconds stretched in the stone's presence. A physicist, studying its tonal response, suggested it acted as a lunar receiver, converting minute changes in gravitational pull into vibration. But for what purpose? Was it a sensor, a record, or something stranger, a device to remind the Earth of its own rhythm? No artifacts surround the stone, no tools or bones to hint at its makers, yet its placement feels intentional, as if set to mark a convergence, a point where energies align. A single carving, found 70 kilometers east on a cliff face, depicts concentric spirals around a vertical line, a motif echoed in the megalithic art of Malta and the early layers of Çatalhöyük. The symbol, always shallow, always peripheral, appears like a signature, not of a person but of a purpose. Some believe the witness stone is part of a global lattice, a network of markers placed to hold the Earth's cadence, their resonance a faint pulse of a forgotten architecture. The Vatican, in the 1990s, funded a survey of such stones under the guise of pilgrimage road restoration. The project vanished without report, its lead researcher leaving a cryptic note. It watches from beneath. The stone near the Danube remains, untouched by time, its mossy shroud a thin veil over its mystery. As you imagine its weathered surface, feel the forest's quiet press, the faint hum of a world that remembers what we have not yet named. Tucked into the weathered hills of Anatolia, where the earth folds into itself, and the wind carries the scent of ancient dust, a narrow staircase descends to a door framed by 3 stacked lintels, each thinner than the last, forming a stepped triangle. Beyond it lies a circular chamber, its low ceiling forcing reverence, its tessellated basalt floor gleaming faintly under torchlight. Discovered in 1999, this is no temple, no tomb, but a place where sound becomes something more, a chamber that shapes the human voice into a resonance that feels older than words. Known only through whispers among local villagers, the Anatolia sound chamber is a marvel that listens, its stones tuned to a language long forgotten, perhaps Sumerian, perhaps something deeper still. The chamber's floor is a mosaic of basalt tiles, each subtly different in size, forming a logarithmic spiral that traces the golden ratio with uncanny precision. When a voice is raised within, even a whisper, the room responds not with an echo, but with a sharpening, as if the words are spoken twice, once by the speaker and once by the stone itself. Acousticians, testing the space with spectral analysis, found that certain phonemes, specific vowel sounds, triggered a harmonic reinforcement, amplifying them in narrow bands tied to ancient Sumerian speech patterns. This was no accident. The effect is disorienting. Researchers who spoke within the chamber reported a fleeting vertigo, a sense of their words arriving before their lips moved, as if the room knew what they would say. One linguist, testing Sumerian phrases, described a moment where her voice seemed to overlap with another, a shadow voice that carried no meaning but felt familiar, like a memory just out of reach. The spiral floor, when walked while speaking, intensified the sensation, the tiles' subtle variations guiding the feet in a rhythm that matched the phoneme's cadence. This was not a space for casual speech but for something deliberate, a ritual where words were not just spoken but shaped, perhaps to unlock a deeper truth. The chamber's age is uncertain, its construction predating the known cultures of Anatolia. The basalt, sourced from quarries hundreds of kilometers away, shows no tool marks, only a smoothness that suggests an unknown craft. Ground-penetrating radar revealed a second chamber below, partially collapsed, its walls resonating with faint electromagnetic pulses during thunderstorms, matching the Schumann resonance, the Earth's natural frequency. The upper chamber shapes sound, the lower seems to listen, its voids amplifying the pulse of the planet itself. A ceramic fragment near the entrance bears a symbol, a spiral intersected by a horizontal line, flanked by two crescents facing outward. This motif, found in the early layers of Çatalhöyük and the megaliths of Malta, marks thresholds, places where the ordinary gives way to something else. Local legends speak of dreamwalkers, not shamans but listeners, who descended into the chamber at night and emerged with poems no one had heard yet, all recognized. These poems, carried through generations, were not stories but patterns, rhythms that felt older than the hills. One tale, recorded in the 19th century, tells of a shepherd who spoke in the chamber and woke to find his flock circling the hill in a spiral, as if guided by the stone's voice. The chamber's effect on the mind is subtle but persistent. Those who linger report a sense of expansion, not outward but inward, as if their thoughts were being recalibrated, aligned with a cadence they cannot name. The chamber's purpose remains elusive. One theory suggests it was a place of linguistic memory, where ancient phonemes were preserved, not in writing but in resonance, a space where language was tuned to its primal roots. Sumerian, one of the earliest known languages, shares phonetic structures with the chamber's harmonics. But the chamber may predate even Sumer, hinting at a culture that saw speech as more than communication, a bridge to the divine or the cosmic. Another hypothesis, less conventional, proposes the chamber as a mnemonic device, not for individuals but for collectives, a space where communities could reconnect with a shared ancestral voice, lost in the fractures of time. Yet the chamber's design feels intentional, its spiral, a path for both body and voice, its low ceiling a demand for humility. A single archival note from a Byzantine monastery, dated to the 10th century, mentions a vault of the tongue in Anatolia, where words return before they are spoken. The note, dismissed as mystical, warns against entering alone, lest the speaker carry the voice too far. What this means is unclear, but it echoes the experiences of those who have stood within, their words folding into the stone's silent song. The Anatolia sound chamber is a riddle, its purpose woven into its acoustics, its meaning hidden in its resonance. It does not shout its secrets but hums them, a quiet invitation to speak and be heard by something older than history. As you envision its spiral floor, imagine the voices that once filled it, their syllables dancing with the stone, their truths lingering in the air. Along the salt-stained cliffs of Portugal's rugged coast, where waves crash and seabirds wail into the void, a narrow passage cuts through limestone, descending steeply into a chamber, lit only by a sliver of sunlight that pierces the rock during the winter solstice. Known to locals as Boca que now devolve some, the mouth without sound, this cave, discovered in the 1970s, is no natural hollow. Its octagonal walls, lined with vertical grooves like the ribs of an ancient instrument, converge on a darkened recess that gleams as if polished by unseen hands. The chamber does not echo, it absorbs, shaping sound into something otherworldly, a resonance that stirs the body and unsettles the mind. The chamber's grooves, varying in depth and width, are not random. When low, sustained tones were played frequencies between 15 and 20 Hz, the walls vibrated in harmonic modes, forming standing waves that gathered at the recess, not the room's center. Those who stood there felt a pressure, not from air but from within, as if the stone were pressing against their thoughts. One archaeologist described a sensation of being watched, not by eyes but by the cave itself, its silence heavier than the ocean's roar. Tests revealed traces of mineral dust along the grooves, iron oxides, crushed lapis, cinnabar substances known for conductivity and luminescence, as if the walls were meant to shimmer under a light we no longer possess. In 2004, a physicist proposed that the chamber was tuned to the sea. When wind struck the cliffs at a precise angle, waves entering a nearby cavern produced infrasound, too low for human ears but powerful enough to ripple through the body. The passage, narrow and steep, funneled these pulses into the chamber, transforming it into a listening post for the ocean's hidden voice. The grooves amplified this infrasound, not in volume but in density, creating a presence that felt alive. Modern science knows infrasound can trigger unease, even hallucinations, but the chamber's design suggests its makers understood this millennia ago, crafting a space to harness the sea's silent song for a purpose we cannot fathom. The chamber's alignment adds another layer of mystery. Its slit window, high above, allows sunlight to enter for mere minutes each year, during the winter solstice, when the constellation Eridanus, the mythic river of stars, reaches its zenith. The light, golden and fleeting, strikes the recess, illuminating a slab half buried in silt. This slab bears angular symbols, not Latin, not Iberian, but a script seen only in rare artifacts from the Canary Islands and West Sahara, a language that hovers at the edge of memory, undeciphered and elusive. When traced and arranged radially, the symbols form a pattern eerily similar to gravitational waves, ripples in space-time detected only in the 21st century by instruments spanning cities. Yet here, carved in stone, is the same ripple, the same pulse, as if the chamber knew a truth beyond its time. The cave's purpose is a puzzle. One theory posits it as a ritual space, where initiates stood in the recess, bathed in the sea's vibrations, to commune with forces beyond the physical, perhaps the Earth's rhythm, perhaps something cosmic. Another suggests it was a navigational tool, not for ships but for minds, guiding those who entered to align with the stars or the tides. The Eridanus connection is particularly haunting. Could the chamber be a gate, not to a place, but to a state, where the sea and sky met in silence? Local mariners' tales, passed through generations, speak of a time when the cliffs wept when the stars were wrong. The phrase, cryptic and poetic, gains weight when paired with the chamber's solstice alignment. No tools or artifacts were found within, only the slab with its strange script, suggesting the cave was not a workshop but a sanctuary, a place where sound was not made but received. The absence of adornment, the stark simplicity of its design, implies a focus on function, on experiencing something the stone was built to hold. One researcher, lingering in the chamber during a storm, reported a vibration so subtle it felt like fingers brushing the edges of memory, a sensation of knowing without understanding. The mouth without sound remains sealed now, its entrance rusted shut by time and neglect. Yet the wind still finds the slit, and the solstice light still touches the recess, if only for a moment. As you picture its shadowed walls, imagine standing in that recess, feeling the sea's pulse, the star's gaze, the weight of a truth that waits, not to be spoken, but to be felt. In the frozen vastness of northern Mongolia, where the wind cuts like a blade and the stars hang low in a sky unmarred by city lights, a solitary basalt stone stands at the heart of an elliptical basin, its surface darker than the surrounding earth. Known to locals as Kok Chulu, the silent blue, this unassuming monolith defies the ordinary, its presence warping the air around it. Animals shy away, compasses spin erratically, and machinery falters in its shadow. First noted in satellite imagery in 1996, the stone anchors a site that feels less like a place and more like a pause, a point where the earth holds its breath. The silent blue is no mere rock, it is a marker, pulsing with a rhythm that echoes the planet's ancient heartbeat, a relic that seems to listen as much as it speaks. The basin, 1.4 kilometers across, is unnaturally symmetrical, its soil devoid of trees or habitation, as if the land itself refuses to encroach. The stone, uncarved and perfectly vertical, stands at its exact center, its basalt composition laced with traces of crystalline quartz, a mineral known for its resonant properties. In 2001, a team of independent researchers conducted a ground-penetrating survey, and found concentric rings of high-density material layered beneath the soil, spaced with mathematical precision. These were not natural strata, but engineered baffles, structures designed to scatter or cancel sound, their magnetic signatures shifting in ways that defied geological models. When exposed to low-frequency tones, the stone vibrated, not uniformly but in a pulsing rhythm, peaking every 26 minutes, a cycle that aligns with no known lunar or solar pattern, but matches the Earth's magnetic field drift over 12,000 years. The stone's resonance is its most unsettling feature. Its vibrations, too low for human ears, induce a sense of motion in those who stand near, a feeling of spiraling downward through layers of unseen light. One researcher described a waking dream of geometric symbols turning like celestial gears, their forms fading upon waking. Cameras failed within 50 meters, batteries drained, and digital sensors recorded only white noise, yet mechanical watches ticked on, gaining time as if seconds stretched in the stone's presence. A physicist, analyzing the resonance, proposed it was a geological metronome, echoing the planet's magnetic reversals and surges, a record not of events but of rhythms etched into the Earth itself. Local tales, whispered by herders, speak of a time before the forests receded, when a people lived near the basin who followed no gods but rhythms. They sang in circles, leaving no temples, no graves, only the stone, which they called a listener, not a speaker. A carving 70 kilometers east, etched into a cliff face, depicts concentric spirals around a vertical line, mirrored by 5 glyphs that appear nowhere else except in a faded Tibetan monastery mural, where they frame a droplet-shaped stone glowing with inner fire. These stories, though fragmented, suggest the silent blue was not a monument but a tool, placed to mark a moment or a frequency, its purpose tied to the Earth's unseen pulse. Satellite scans, taken during deep winter, capture faint infrared flashes from the site, not from heat but from a difference in energy, as if the stone draws warmth from elsewhere. The surrounding land remains inert, but the basin glows, a subtle defiance of the cold. Villagers avoid the site after dark, not from fear but reverence, claiming the ground hums after snow, a vibration that rises through frost, not as sound but as presence. One herder, interviewed in 2002, spoke of a night when stars seemed fixed, unmoving, and the stone's shadow stretched too long, as if it reached beyond the earth. The silent blue's purpose eludes us. Its resonance, tied to the Earth's magnetic field, suggests it was placed to track changes invisible to the eye, perhaps shifts in the planet's core or its alignment with the cosmos. One theory, hushed among academics, posits it as a node in a global network, a system of stones designed to anchor the Earth's rhythm, their vibrations a code for those who knew how to read it. Another, more daring, suggests it as a beacon, not for humans but for something else, its quartz core amplifying a signal meant to endure millennia. The silent blue remains untouched, its basin unmarked by signs or fences. It stands as it always has, a silent sentinel in a land of wind and stars. Its resonance, a whisper of a time when the Earth was more than home, it was a partner. Its pulse known and measured. As you imagine its dark form, feel the cold air, the faint hum beneath the soil, the weight of a truth that waits, not to be found, but to be felt. In the dense pine forests of what was once Prussia, now a borderland of moss and ruins, a collapsed monastery hides a chamber that defies the passage of centuries. Discovered in 1994 beneath shattered stones, this octagonal room, windowless and precise, resists decay with an eerie permanence. Its ceiling curves inward, a shallow dome of intersecting ribs meeting at a sealed oculus, glowing faintly as if lit from within the stone. No frescoes adorn the walls, only spirals intersected by straight lines, painted in a pigment so dark it swallows light, outlined in metallic dust that tarnishes every tool but remains untouched. This is the Prussia time chamber, a space not for prayer or burial, but for correcting time itself, its geometry whispering of a history rewritten. The chamber's alignment is its first mystery. It deviates 11 degrees west of true north, matching the offset between solar and sidereal time, a discrepancy no medieval builder should have known. Each corner of the octagon corresponds to a date, not a place. The Julian-Gregorian calendar shift, the Council of Nicaea, the Roman fasti reforms moments when humanity redefined how time was measured. At the center, a pedestal bears a shallow, circular depression, the size of a human skull, warm to the touch yet colder than ice when measured. The chamber hums faintly during the March equinox, a vibration unmeasurable but felt, stalling watches and faltering voices. This is no accident. It is a clock of corrections, a space where time was not observed but adjusted. A single surviving manuscript from the 14th century, found in the monastery's ruins, speaks of a turning that was not told, an hour that passed twice yet was felt only once. It describes monks chanting numerals, not scripture, facing cardinal points guided by a pressure beneath their feet. One frantic line stands out: "They told us we followed Rome, but Rome followed a clock set in shadow." The chamber's design suggests it was built to sense fluctuations in timekeeping, perhaps to reset them, aligning human calendars with a deeper rhythm. The oculus, sealed with leaded glass, allows no light, yet the walls shimmer faintly, as if reflecting a sky no longer above us. The chamber's purpose is elusive. Its geometry, when modelled, maps not to stars but to revisions of history, as if it tracked the moments when time was rewritten. The spirals, under ultraviolet light, reveal patterns that shift with the viewer's angle, resembling neural pathways or timelines folding into themselves. One researcher, in 2007, suggested it was a metatemporal reference, a place to recalibrate not just calendars but perception, aligning those within to a truth obscured by centuries. The vibration, felt during the equinox, matches brainwave patterns tied to deep focus, suggesting the chamber was not for prayer but for attuning the mind to a hidden cadence. No artifacts were found within, only the pedestal and its empty socket, hinting at a missing piece, a globe perhaps, or a device that completed the chamber's function. A cryptic note from the 1920s, buried in a Polish archive, mentions a circle of corrections in Prussia, lost during the war. The chamber's isolation, hidden beneath a monastery with no recorded name, suggests it was not meant for pilgrims but for guardians, those who understood its power. The Prussia time chamber challenges our understanding of history. Some speculate it ties to the phantom time hypothesis, a theory that 300 years of history were fabricated, inserted by emperors and scribes to control the narrative. The chamber's 11-degree offset, its octagonal design, lends weight to this idea, as if it were built to mark a discrepancy, a fracture in the timeline we accept. As you envision its shadowed walls, imagine standing on that pedestal, feeling the hum of a truth that time has buried, a secret that waits to be recalculated. Deep in the arid expanse of eastern Ethiopia, where the desert stretches unbroken and the wind carves whispers into stone, a square outline emerged in 2015, detected by a satellite's heat signature. Buried beneath 5 meters of silt, a floor of black stone, etched with a grid of copper lines, lay undisturbed, its surface radiating 1.7 degrees warmer than the surrounding rock, unvarying through day or season. This was no natural formation. The grid, 12 by 12, each tile engraved with a single symbol, a curve bisected by 2 horizontal bars, points to ancient sites across the globe. A map not of the Earth but of a network lost to time. Known only as the Ethiopia stone floor, it hums with a frequency that stirs the mind, a relic of a world we have yet to name. The floor's tiles, 144 in total, form a precise matrix, each slightly misaligned, their angles creating a code when plotted. These vectors align with distant ruins, Mohenjo-Daro, Göbekli Tepe, Lake Titicaca's submerged pillars, Yonaguni's sunken stones, places tied to humanity's earliest whispers. Beneath the grid, a spherical chamber, empty and dry, emits a single, unwavering tone at 19.87 Hz, a pitch below hearing but not beyond feeling. Researchers who stood upon the floor reported nausea, visual flickers, a sensation of being pulled toward a memory they could not grasp. One collapsed after 6 minutes, weeping without cause, as if the stone had unlocked a grief older than their own. The copper lines, when analysed, revealed isotopic ratios alien to Earth's mines, their composition closer to meteoric dust than any known deposit. This was no work of local hands. The grid symbols, identical across each tile, resemble a horizon split twice, a marker found in no regional art but echoed in artifacts from the Caucasus to Bolivia. Linguists call it a designation, not a word, a sign of ownership or purpose, as if the floor were a node in a system too vast to comprehend. Ground-penetrating scans showed the chamber below as a perfect dome, its apex directly beneath the grid's center, amplifying the tone like a heartbeat carved in stone. No entrance exists, no ladder or door, only the vibration, rising ceaselessly, as if the earth itself were speaking. Local stories, carried by nomadic tribes, tell of a night that lasted a day, when stars froze and shadows stood still, long before calendars or fire. The elders speak of a grid that sang, lulling people into dreamless sleep, waking with a sense of loss they could not name. The language of the region holds an anomaly, verbs with no modern meaning, like to remember before remembering, or to hold what has not occurred. These ghost words, found nowhere else, hint at a knowledge once understood, now fractured. A nearby tablet, carbon, dated to 9,000 years ago, bears a carved eye, split vertically, with the same double bar symbol below, its gaze turned inward, not to the sky but to something deeper. The floor's purpose is a mystery. Its grid, pointing to ancient sites, suggests a map of a global network, a system of markers placed before cities rose. Some believe it was a calibration point, aligning human perception with the Earth's unseen rhythms, its tone a signal to awaken collective memory. Others, more daring, propose it as a remnant of an extraterrestrial design, its meteoric copper, a clue to origins beyond our world. The floor was reburied, officially non-existent, its equipment removed, yet the tone persists, vibrating through the stone. Travelers crossing the region report headaches, dreams of lattice patterns, and birds that will not fly overhead. The Ethiopia stone floor does not guide at anchors, a silent map of a world that waits, its grid a question etched in copper and time. In the dense, emerald heart of Bolivia's lowlands, where rivers carve ancient paths and the jungle breathes with secrets, a clearing appears each year when the rains recede, a perfect circle of flattened earth, 86 meters across, unmarked by trails or fire. Detected by satellite in 1972, this anomaly, known as El Espejo Sin Reflejo, the mirror without reflection, holds no shrine, no ruin, only a stillness that silences the forest's hum. At its center, a cold spot, 2 meters wide, remains 8 degrees below the surrounding air, unmoved by sun or season. This is no natural clearing, it is a mark, a memory of a sky inverted, a relic that captures stars from 12,000 years ago, whispering of a time when the world turned inside out. The clearing's precision is uncanny. Its edges, sharp and unyielding, form a circle that resists the jungle's chaos, as if pressed by a force both massive and fleeting. No signs of cultivation or burning mar its surface, yet the vegetation lies flat, aligned in radial patterns visible only from above. A Brazilian ethnographer, exploring Tucana oral traditions, stumbled upon the site and noted its eerie, quiet birds ceased their calls. Insects fell still, and a faint hum rose from the earth, felt through the soles of his feet. His notebook, mailed before his disappearance weeks later, contained sketches of the clearing, its lines radiating like spokes, aligning with Sirius, Vega, and Deneb as they appeared 12,000 years ago. Not in today's sky, but in an inverse triangle, as seen from a pole long shifted. The soil, when tested, revealed a fine grey dust, metallic and inert, bearing microscopic spherules akin to those formed in atmospheric entry, as if something from beyond had touched down, once and never again. Compasses brought to the site spun gently, not erratically, settling into a rhythm like a pendulum finding rest. Geologists found the ground compressed, as if a great weight had rested there, leaving no trace but pressure. The cold spot, unyielding to heat, defies explanation. No geological process accounts for its persistence. One researcher, standing at the center, described a sensation of falling upward, a weightlessness that lingered in dreams of towers reflected in still water, their forms dissolving into light. Tucana cosmology speaks of places that look upward while facing inward, not temples but mirrors that invert the world, holding memories of a time when the sky fell and the earth rose. The clearing, they say, is not empty but full, sealed with what was lost. Its radial lines, when mapped, form a structure resembling a five-dimensional tesseract unfolded into two dimensions, a geometric impossibility theorized only in modern mathematics. These lines point not just to stars but to moments: the Younger Dryas, the Sumerian flood, the Maya long count reset events of fracture, when history seemed to pause and shift. The clearing is not a map of space but of interruption, a place where time bends. No artifacts were found, no tools or bones, only the earth's silence and the cold spot's chill. The Tucana elder, who guided the ethnographer, warned against sleeping in the circle, saying it sings to those who listen too long. The ethnographer's final notes, scrawled in haste, described a vision of slow-moving lights, not stars but currents, flowing through an atmosphere that felt alive. His disappearance, unexplained, fuels whispers that the clearing is a threshold, a point where the world's skin thins, where memory and moment collide. The mirror without reflection does not reflect what is, it holds what was, a silent circle that waits for the sky to align once more. Deep in the frostbitten folds of the Carpathian Mountains, where trails vanish under moss and the air grows heavy with unspoken history, a ruin lies buried beneath a cairn of collapsed stones. Uncovered during the Second World War by partisans seeking shelter, this structure, shaped like a 12-pointed star, defies logic with its twisting corridors and staircases that slope upward yet descend. At its heart stands a smooth, lightless monolith, absorbing sound and thought alike, its presence a void that presses against the mind. Known only through whispers as the Chamber of Forgetting, this is no sanctuary, it is a place where memory unravels, where history folds inward, leaving only fragments of what once was. Each of the chamber's 12 points leads to a short corridor ending in a niche, empty but expectant, as if awaiting something lost. The monolith, rectangular and unadorned, seems to drink the air, thickening breath and slowing thought. Partisans who entered reported strange effects. Watches stopped, hunger faded, and one heard his mother's voice, long dead, reciting a lullaby in a tongue he could not name. The chamber's walls, etched with recursive spirals and bifurcating paths, resemble neurons or timelines splitting endlessly. Under torchlight, these patterns shift, forming a fleeting face symmetrical, vast, neither human nor beast, watching without judgment. Photographs of the chamber develop blank, not dark or light, but void, as if the place refuses to be captured. The stone's composition, tested in secret, matches no local quarry, its minerals suggesting high-altitude metamorphic pressure from tectonic faults far distant. A 13th century chronicle by a monk named Matus Tahalik mentions a vault without doors, where every corridor returns subtraction, a sanctum of unlearning. Dismissed as allegory, the account aligns too closely with the chamber's location, its warning clear: those who enter should not speak, lest they carry the forgetting outward. In 2003, a Polish researcher, after 3 hours inside, emerged weeping, reciting flawless Sogdian, a language dead for a millennium without prior knowledge. Her words, translated, spoke of time as a mirror turned to a wall, a truth taught but not seen. The chamber's geometry is its deepest riddle. Its corridors bend without direction, creating a dissonance that warps perception. Maps drawn by hand contradict themselves, their lines looping impossibly. The monolith, when touched, induces a dull pressure in the jaw, a rhythm behind the eyes, matching theta brainwave patterns tied to deep trance and memory suppression. Some believe the chamber was built to erase, not to store a keystone in a forgotten architecture designed to suppress narratives, to dissolve certainties until only fragments remain. Its vibrations, felt but not heard, suggest it still functions, perhaps for those who built it, or for something that lingers within. No artifacts mark the chamber's purpose, only the spirals, their paths like thoughts unraveling. One theory posits it as a site where timelines diverged, where history was stitched imperfectly, leaving echoes of lost cities and phantom dynasties. The chamber's collapse in 2017, after centuries of resilience, felt deliberate, as if it chose to fade. Yet its memory persists, a place that does not invite understanding but demands forgetting, its monolith a silent guardian of truths too heavy to bear. As you envision its star-shaped walls, feel the weight of absence, the pull of a void that knows more than it tells. In the heart of the Libyan desert, where sand sculpts stone into fleeting curves and silence presses heavier than the sun, a shallow hexagonal depression scars the bedrock, its edges catching sunlight with a sharpness that betrays intent. At its center lies a translucent slab, neither quartz nor glass, its surface cool and unyielding, refracting the sky into a spectrum invisible to the naked eye. Discovered in 2007, this relic, dubbed the Libya Desert Stone, projects a shifting grid of lines under infrared light, not of the desert but of a starfield from 10,000 years ago, a window to a sky no longer ours. Its presence, pristine and defiant, suggests a purpose beyond human hands, a marker of time itself. The slab's material is a mystery, exhibiting non-Newtonian optical behavior, bending light differently with each angle yet never warming under exposure. Attempts to drill a sample failed, the drill's tip melted, the stone unscathed, as if it refused intrusion. Its hexagonal perimeter aligns with distant points across the desert, some marked by collapsed structures, others by empty sand, forming a network of distances that mirror lunar apogee cycles. The moon's furthest orbit, a faint sigil, a spiral within a triangle, overlaid with 3 bars, marks one vertex, a symbol unseen in local iconography, but echoed in artifacts from the Caucasus to Bolivia, always peripheral, like a cautious whisper. When captured frame by frame, the slab's infrared projection forms a rotating starfield, aligned with latitude 22 north, longitude 25 east, the exact coordinates of its resting place. Astronomers confirmed it depicts the sky as seen 10,000 years ago, a time before cities or scripts. The pattern is not static but fluid, suggesting a chronology of potentials, moments that might have been encoded in light. A physicist, studying the projection, proposed it as a model of unrealized paths, not just of stars but of possibilities, a map of what never occurred. Desert legends tell of a people who arrived before sand, etching records not in homes but in stone, their hands tracing angles under moonlight, their name gestured, never spoken. The site resists scrutiny. Ground-penetrating radar scatters, as if the soil rejects echoes. The surrounding terrain holds no signs of quarry or settlement, suggesting the slab was placed, not built. Its temperature, 3.6 degrees cooler than the sand, remains constant, a faint pulse of difference. During the lunar standstill, every 18.6 years, the slab's light bends inward, entering without returning, as if swallowed by time. The Libya Desert Stone is no mere relic. It is a lens, a window to a past that watches us, its grid, a silent question, waiting for a sky to align once more. As the shadows lengthen and the world quiets, we stand at the edge of a vast tapestry, woven from the threads of ancient stones, forgotten chambers, and maps that chart worlds beyond our own. From the ice-free shores of Piri Reis's Antarctica to the starlit spirals of the Libya Desert Stone, each relic we have explored carries a whisper of a truth too grand, too fragile, to be fully spoken. These are not mere artifacts, they are fragments of a memory buried, a history concealed, a story that clings to the earth like frost to a winter dawn. The mystery of these hidden relics is not in their existence but in their silence, in the deliberate act of their concealment, as if someone, somewhere, long ago, decided that certain truths must wait, sealed in stone, for a time when we might be ready to hear them. Consider the pattern that emerges. The Piri Reis map, with its impossible coastline, speaks of a civilization that saw the Earth's edges when ice still retreated. The Quadrans Obscurus, locked beneath the Vatican, measures the heavens with a precision that challenges our timeline. The Sinop disk, forged from star-fallen metal, tracks eclipses as if time were a rhythm to be played. The Ecuador stone maps a drowned continent, its grooves guiding hands that sailed a lost sea. The Sipa tablets, etched with stars from 10,000 years ago, hint at eyes that watched a sky we cannot know. La Piedra Muda in Toledo hums with a frequency that stirs dreams, while Angkor's celestial chamber traces planetary paths no Khmer should have known. The Nile stone mourns a river erased, and the Pedra del Silencio in Peru sings with infrasound that touches the soul. The Witness stone by the Danube bends time's flow, and the Anatolia sound chamber shapes words into memories older than language. The mouth without sound in Portugal listens to the sea's secrets. The silent blue in Mongolia pulses with the earth's heartbeat, and the Prussia time chamber recalibrates history itself. The Ethiopia stone floor maps a global network, and Bolivia's mirror without reflection holds a sky inverted. The chamber of forgetting in the Carpathians erases what we once knew, and the Libya desert stone projects a past that never was. Each relic, distinct in form and place, shares a single truth. They were hidden, not lost, their silence a choice, not a chance. Why hide such wonders? The answer lies not in their form, but in their implication. These artifacts suggest a civilization, or perhaps many whose knowledge of the earth, the stars, and time itself surpassed what we grant to antiquity. They knew the planet's curvature, the orbits of planets, the rhythms of tides and fields, long before our instruments confirmed them. They carved their truths in stone, in clay, in metal, not to boast but to endure, as if they foresaw a deluge, a fire, a forgetting that would sweep their world away. The younger Dryas, 12,000 years ago, looms over these relics, a cataclysm that drowned lands, shifted climates, and perhaps silenced a people whose legacy now speaks through these scattered fragments. Were they erased by nature's wrath, or by human hands that feared their power? The act of concealment is telling. The Topkapi Palace guarded Piri Reis's map in dusty scrolls, unopened for centuries. The Vatican sealed the Quadrans Obscurus, denying its existence. The Sinop disk was buried in a cliffside cave, the Ethiopia floor covered by silt, the Carpathian chamber collapsed under stone. These were not accidents. They suggest a concerted effort, perhaps by empires, priests, or a forgotten order, to bury knowledge that threatened their control. A medieval Latin text speaks of forbidden alignments, sealed in silence, their truth too potent to share. In Toledo, monks warned of a stone that awakened what sleeps. In Ethiopia, ghost verbs hint at actions we no longer name. This was no mere preservation, it was protection, not of the artifacts but of us, as if their truths could unravel the fragile order we call history. Yet these relics endure, surfacing by chance a landslide, an earthquake, a misplaced tile. Their persistence feels defiant, as if the earth itself refuses to let them fade. They are not answers but questions, each one a crack in the narrative we have built. What if history is not a line but a spiral, folding back to a time when we knew more, saw more, were more? What if the floods of the Younger Dryas did not destroy but displaced, scattering a people whose knowledge we now glimpse in stone and star? Some whisper of Atlantis, others of visitors from beyond, but the truth may be simpler and stranger, a humanity that walked with the cosmos, its memory sealed to wait for a moment we have not yet reached. The mystery is not just who they were, but why we were made to forget. Did their knowledge threaten power, faith, or the very fabric of time? The Chamber of Forgetting suggests a deliberate act, a place to erase what was known. The Prussia time chamber points to a history rewritten, days added or lost to align with a new order. These relics are not relics, they are signals, pulsing through time, waiting for us to listen. As you drift through their stories, imagine a world where stones hum, where stars guide, where silence holds a truth that breathes. Let their mystery carry you, not to answers, but to the quiet where questions live.